The year was 1986. Hair metal bands ruled the radio, jean jackets and mullets were a fashion statement, and arcades were a thing. A big thing. There was definitely no shortage of arcades in the 1980s. Almost every city had at least one. If they didn't, you were most likely 15 to 30 minutes away from one that did. Arcades were my hangout spots when I was a preteen up into my mid-teens. My friends and I would save our school lunch money for the week, just so we could have some change to use at the arcades on the weekends. Of course, we'd get a couple more bucks from our parents before they dropped us off. This kept us off the streets and out of trouble, for the most part. I'll never forget the smell of almost every arcade. They all smelled like pizza, hot circuitry, and cigarettes. Yes, cigarettes. They didn't give two shits if minors were smoking, as long as they were making money. Those were the days. It's pretty sad the arcades are practically extinct today. But we are going to take a trip back to 1986 and look at the top 10 highest grossing arcade games that year. So let's go. At number 10, we have Akari Warriors. The game was a major commercial success in arcades. It was Japan's second highest grossing table arcade in 1986, and London's third highest grossing arcade game that year. It was also a major breakthrough US release for SNK, ranking among America's top 5 highest grossing dedicated arcade games for 2 years in a row in 1986 and 1987. This game raked in $60 million. At number 9, we have Mania Challenge. Use a combination of punch and kick buttons to perform a variety of wrestling holds and counter holds. This game has 4 character wrestlers, 2 of which are Insane Warrior and Golden Hawk from Mat Mania, and the others are Dynamite Tommy and Hurricane Joe. This game also raked in $60 million. At number 8, we have Pole Position 2. The gameplay is the same as the original Pole Position with 3 additional tracks to choose from. Like its predecessor, Pole Position 2 was a major commercial success in arcades, becoming the highest grossing arcade game in 1984 in the United States, and remaining among the annual highest grossing arcade games in Japan and the US through 1987. Like the other 2, this game brought in $60 million. At number 7, we have Spy Hunter. Spy Hunter is a vertical scrolling driving game with the player in the role of a spy driving an armed sports car. The object of the game is to travel the freeway destroying as many enemy vehicles as possible while protecting civilian vehicles. The game uses a top-down perspective. And just like all the previous games, this game also brought in $60 million. At number 6, we have World Series. This is considered the best baseball game of the era. World Series this season allowed 1 player versus the computer or 2 players versus each other. The game features excellent sound and graphics, spring-loaded joysticks for batting and pitching, and extra base and go back buttons. And you guessed it, it brought in $60 million. At number 5, we have Mat Mania. Mat Mania, known in Japan as Exciting Hour, the Pro Wrestling Network, or simply Exciting Hour, is a Japanese arcade game developed by Technos Japan and published by Taito in 1985. It is a spiritual successor to the 1983 arcade game Tag Team Wrestling, also developed by Technos Japan, but published by Data East. This game brought in $67 million. At number 4, we have Gauntlet. The arcade version of Gauntlet was released in November 1985 and was initially available only as a dedicated 4-player cabinet. Atari distributed a total of 7,848 arcade units. In Japan, the game was released by Namco in February 1986. Atari later released a 2-player cabinet variant in June 1986, aimed at operators who could not afford or did not have the sufficient space for the 4-player version. This game raked in a whopping $100 million. At number 3, we have Super Mario Bros. Players control Mario or his brother Luigi in the multiplayer mode to explore the Mushroom Kingdom to rescue Princess Toadstool from King Koopa, who's later known as Bowser. They traverse side-scrolling stages while avoiding hazards such as enemies and pits with the aid of power-ups such as the Super Mushroom, Fire Flower, and Starman. Super Mario Bros. Brought in $110 million. At number 2, we have Outrun. Outrun is an arcade driving video game released by Sega in September 1986. It is known for its pioneering hardware and graphics and selectable soundtrack of music. The goal in this game is to avoid traffic and reach one of the 5 destinations. This game brought in $120 million. And finally, at number 1, we have Hang On. Hang On was very popular at launch and sold well for Sega, becoming the highest grossing arcade video game of 1985 in the US, and then the highest grossing arcade game in 1986 in both Japan and the US. It received a positive critical reception for its realism, graphics, byte cabinet, and physical controls, though there was some initial controversy in Japan over modesty concerns involving female players with the byte cabinet. This game brought in $130 million. So there you have it. Those are the top 10 highest grossing arcade games of 1986. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to take a trip back to the good old days, back when the arcades were still abundant. You could find them anywhere. So if you are new to the channel, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps out this channel a lot, and I greatly appreciate it. And until the next video, game on, everybody.